People think that they understand how finance works. They think they understand how banking works. And they have ideas about how to be profitable that are silly. They don't make any sense, which is why the vast majority of traders lose money. And by when I say the vast majority, I mean nearly all, like 90% lose money. And if you, I mean, so let's say only 67% lost money. The amount that the losers lose exceeds the amount that the winners win by so much that somebody in chat says, what dip? True, what dip? Yes, good point. Rich, I don't think you have enough watches. It's only $2 million of watches. Hey, the candelabra is still here. You just can't see it. It's behind all this stuff. I don't think I have space for it, man. So where does profit come from? Let's talk about things that people think are legitimate ways to make money in the world. Let's take Apple stock. Let's take Burger King, because more of you guys have been to Burger King recently than bought iPhones, probably. You buy 10% of the shares of ownership of your local Burger King franchise. You now own 10% of that Burger King. Can you add menus to the item? Or can you add items to the menu? No. Can you change the hours of operation? No. Can you change the prices? No. Okay. So what exactly can you do with your 10% ownership of your local Burger King? What can you do with that? You can do exactly one thing. You can sell your shares to the next guy and hope that you made money. And that's it. That's all you can do. Richard, that sounds like a scam. Okay. Well, that's the majority of profitable behavior in the world, right? Owning shares in companies and those companies building goods and services and people using their goods and services. That's the vast majority of economic output in the world. The only thing that matters is goods and services. All the money and finance and stuff is just ways to help reduce friction to make the goods and services production and distribution work better. And so people don't understand much about company ownership. They don't understand much about stock ownership. They don't understand much about the stock market. Or worse, they think they understand a lot, and really they're just smart enough to be dangerous. So where does the money come from? Let's say you buy Apple stock. You, as an Apple shareholder, can you change the prices? No. Can you change the hours? No. Can you add products? No. Can you change the logo? No. What can you do as a minority shareholder? Absolutely nothing. And then they introduce extra restrictions on top of that. In Facebook, the majority of shares are non-voting. And then even if you owned the majority of shares in Facebook, they wouldn't have voting rights. And you still couldn't change anything anyway. So, in fact, the majority of the stock market and the appreciation of stock prices is the next guy buying. Period. That's it. But they have revenue. Yeah. Show me how when someone buys an iPhone, the shareholder gets the money. Someone buys an iPhone, the retailer gets the money. They use that to pay their bill for the iPhone that they had in inventory. It goes into the Apple bank account. There it sits. Apple sits on a lot of cash and pays some of their bills with Foxconn that manufactures their phones and pays some of their employees. Okay, now tell me where that money from the person that bought the phone goes to the person that owns the shares. It doesn't. There's two rare exceptions to this: stock buybacks and dividends. And in a stock buyback, in order for you to harvest that money going back, you have to sell your shares. You don't just get the money. So if you own a business, you just get the money, right? If you're a sole proprietor and you paint somebody's house and they write you a check, you got the money. You don't have to sell any shares to get the money. So in the form of a stock buyback, they're not even really giving you the money that came from the sale of the phone. What's another way? Dividends. And in this case, this is the actual only case that I'm aware of where money from sales actually ends up in the hands of shareholders. Period. That's it. Okay. So now, what portion of the appreciation in stock and the revenue of a shareholder is from dividends? Unless you have utilities, which have high dividends historically, it's all the next guy buying higher. Period. So the vast, vast, vast majority of profitability in stocks is the next guy buying higher. You don't have any power. You don't have any control. You can't do crap. You can just buy the shares and hope the number goes up and hope that you sell to the next guy higher. Period. Period. That's it. So, and that's the reason you have unprofitable companies that are the richest companies in the world. How long did Amazon lose money? Forever. I think it might have just started being profitable last year. Lost money for 20 years. It's half of all the internet sales in the United States. Jeff Bezos is every once in a while the richest person in the world. But his company lost money. Why? Because the market understands that future profitability is worth so much that you could just lose money now because you're buying more money in the future. So you're not really losing money. You're just shifting the making of the money from now to the future at a larger amount, like a discounted cash flow. So once again, people that are just smart enough to be dangerous, they say silly things like, oh, Amazon's never made any money. They make tons of money. They could just reduce their advertising budget and reduce their R&D budgets and just sit on what they've got and make huge bank. But they'd rather multiply what they've got and reinvest in the future to make more later. Makes more sense. And since the market can predict what's going to happen in the future, I mean, the chart for Amazon went up in the 2000s, dropped 95%, and then went up forevermore. And it's just up and to the right forever. Similar to Tesla, similar to Hex, similar to Bitcoin, similar to Ethereum, similar to a lot of cryptocurrencies. Everything that's priced against the dollar goes up and to the right forever because they keep minting dollars for free out of thin air. Nobody needs yours. Nobody needs your dollars that you worked really hard for because they can go get the free, cheap dollars from the government. And here we come to our next lesson. So my goal here, one, I want to teach you how to not get hacked. Two, I want to teach you where all the profit comes from. Because people just don't understand where the profit comes from. They don't get it. Their little tiny brains can't understand, and I'm going to help them. I'm going to educate them. All of your yield, or the vast majority of your yield, as a shareholder in a company, comes from the next guy buying higher, and not at all from dividends and stock buybacks, except in some rare cases where some companies have high dividends or high buyback behavior. And in that case, dividends is the more real of the two because you don't have to sell shares in order to get your dividend. But you do have to sell shares in order to harvest the increase in share price from a stock buyback. So, bank accounts. Here we go. People that think they're smart again, but Papa Richard Hart has to educate them. Okay? People think that when you put your money into a bank, they lend your money out and they make interest and then you get some of that interest. Doesn't happen. Doesn't work like that. Wait a second, Richard. Are you telling me that when I put my money in the bank that it doesn't get lent out? Yes, that is what I'm telling you. Oh, well then how does the bank make money? Well, I know, and most people listening don't, unless you've been listening to me for a while. The bank is going to keep your money, which is a liability to them, not an asset. It goes on the liability side of their balance sheet. They owe it. It's not theirs. They owe it. And they're going to use that money as a reserve to go get leveraged up 10 times more nearly free money from the government. Because the government prints money out of thin air. And they want banks to stimulate the economy by creating new money. This is called a money multiplier effect. When one person spends $1, it creates about $7 of economic activity. It's basically the majority of money is created from credit. So if I say I'll paint your house for $100, which is a good deal, let's make it more expensive. Let's call it $1,000. You got a small house. Let's say I'm going to paint your house for $1,000. And then you say, okay, well, I'll pay you when it's done. And I start painting your house. Well, in effect, that work and GDP, gross domestic production, and effort in making the world better, it has already occurred. I'm doing it. I'm doing the work. And so in effect, the money was created even though it wasn't paid yet. And then I, because I have a receivable, can then factor my receivable and sell it to somebody else and go, this guy that I'm painting his house for owes me $1,000. So why don't you give me like 800 and you can make the difference, but I'll have my 800 now instead of waiting for him to give me my 1,000. It's called factoring. So the majority of money in the economy is really just created out of credit, and these things banks do. So when the bank gives you a loan, it creates money out of thin air. And the government's already creating money out of thin air as well. So you deposit your $100,000 at the bank. Now they have a $100,000 reserve, which lets them borrow $1 million or more, maybe $20 million, depending on the reserve ratio. So 10% reserve ratio allow them to borrow from the government $10 million. And what do you think the bank is going to make more money on? Lending out $10 million or lending out your $1 million? they're going to make more money lending out the 10 million because the interest rates that the government gives them are so low. So now, in fact, the yield that you're being paid for putting your money in the bank is not for lending your money out, because your money's not going to get lent out. Your money is just going to sit there as an excuse for the government to go, oh, well, we like reserve ratios, and the banks that have larger reserve ratios will just lend more money to. Right? Oh, you've got $1 million reserve instead of $10,000 reserve. We're going to lend you, 1,000x more money, or 100x more money. Now, how many people know that? How many people in the whole world know that when you put your money in a bank, it doesn't get lent out? Almost nobody, because I'm the only guy spreading the idea. I'm the only guy spreading the truth. So where does the yield come from? Inflation. Well, where's the inflation? The government literally just prints the money out of thin air. They print the money out of thin air. Your yield at your bank is from people printing the money out of thin air. Your yield in the stock market is also mostly them printing the money out of thin air. When they print all this money, it has to go somewhere. Where does it go? Places where it doesn't lose to inflation, where it can get yield. Okay, well, where's the only place large enough to park these trillions of dollars that they printed? The stock market. And so what happens? The stock market goes to new all-time highs because the money has to go somewhere. Same with crypto. Stock market makes new all-time highs. Crypto makes new all-time highs. Why? Because people are looking for places to park their capital to beat inflation. Because look, even though what you have is going up in value, if all the stuff that you want to buy also went up in price, you just broke even. So if you didn't double like a lot of these watches that are sitting here are costing twice what they cost from the factory, and they're permanently sold out. So if you want them, you got to pay 2 to 3 times what they cost from the factory. Now, most watches lose money. Watches I buy, they don't. So your yield in the stock market is the next guy buying. It's called the greater fool theory, but I don't like calling them that because these guys make all the money. How are you going to call them fools when they make all the money? The most profitable people in the world are the fools that have been buying these things at inflated prices because they get more inflated. So, you'd be hard pressed when everything's at new all-time highs to have bought at the wrong time because everything's at new all-time highs. Stock market's new all-time highs. Crypto in April 16th was the Bitcoin top. 27 days later was the Ethereum top. Hex is making new all-time highs all the time. I think it was just a week or two, maybe 2 weeks ago. It did it last all-time high, I think. I mean, for all I know, it might be an all-time high now while I'm on stream. I'll go look. 19 cents, real close to an all-time high. Our all-time high was 21.8, 21.9 rounded, and now we're at 19. So we're like this close to an all-time high now in Hex, hex.com. So where else do people not know where the yield comes from? So now I've told you where the yield comes from in stocks, the next guy buying higher. I've told you where the yield comes from in bank accounts, inflation, printing money out of thin air. Where does the yield come from for Bitcoin miners? Bitcoin miners have been, every single coin that exists in the world in Bitcoin passed through the hands of a Bitcoin miner because they minted it out of thin air. I know because I was a Bitcoin miner and I used to mine full 50 Bitcoin block reward blocks with no pool, no middlemen, no counterparty risk. Me and my GPU, we would mine full 50 Bitcoin block rewards on our own, mint 50 Bitcoin out of thin air. 50 Bitcoin now is worth about $25 million, $2.5 million. 50 Bitcoin is 2.5 million, I think. Yeah. So where does the yield come from? The next guy buying higher. That's where the yield comes from. Ethereum used to be 31 cents at its crowd sale. Now it's $3,300. That's a 10,000x. Why is Ethereum 10,000x up higher in price? Where does the yield come from? The next guy buying higher. The same place it comes from in stocks. The same place it comes from in Bitcoin. Why has Hex price gone up 4,000 fold in a year and a half before interest, before staking, and 6,000 to 9,000 fold with staking interest? How can it do that? Because the next guy's buying higher. That's it. I don't understand why people don't get this. Their brains don't understand that all of the yield from everything is basically from inflation. Bitcoin miners' revenue is from inflating the Bitcoin supply. Your savings deposit yield as a saver in a bank comes from the Fed inflating the supply. The yield of, what was it? It was banks, stocks, crypto. Yeah, those are the three. I mean, where else is there yield that we need to talk about? So, I mean, yeah. And then, is it stupid for the next guy to buy higher? Well, I don't know. Bitcoin's up 6.5 million X from a penny in around 10 years. Ethereum's up 10,000 X. Hex is up 4,000 X. Is it stupid to be the guy that bought higher? Everything's at new all-time highs. Imagine if you didn't buy higher and you just sat in cash, or you sat in gold. Wrecked. Gold is cheaper now than it was 10 years ago. But everything else is at new all-time highs. You lost money holding gold instead of the dollar, and you lost money holding the dollar instead of nearly anything else that they don't print out of thin air. So our made-up, fake, imaginary internet money is better than the government's made-up, fake, imaginary internet money. Go look at the chart. It's that easy. It's got better hours. It's got better uptime. It's got better everything. Except you do have to transfer back to the crappy government stuff often to buy stuff you want sometimes. But who cares when you're up 1,000-fold? Who cares? Can you buy coffee with your Berkshire Hathaway stock? No. Can you buy coffee with your Apple stock? No. But are they very profitable things to have? Yes. So I hope that, one, I've taught you how to not get hacked, and two, I've taught you where the profit and where the yield comes from. Because these armchair economists that think like, oh, Bitcoin's a scam because where does the money come from? It comes from the next guy buying. Value storage is very profitable. People want to store their value. The best place. This is one of the best places. Okay, well, where does the Ethereum miner profit come from? Same place. Where does the speculator profit come from? Same place. This money that they're printing out of thin air has to go somewhere. Why wouldn't it go to the highest appreciating asset class that has ever existed in the history of mankind? And I think I may have created the most price performative asset in the history of the world, maybe. Like, I'd give it like a 70-30 chance that I'm pretty sure that Hex has beat everything else. So we'll see, right? Like, I think 4,000x in 1.5 years with really good liquidity, you can sell. We see people buying Rolexes and boats and houses and Maybachs, McLarens, everything. Like Ferraris, Lamborghinis. I've seen Hexicans buying everything. We see people selling millions and millions and millions of dollars of Hex all the time. Price keeps going up. Price keeps making new all-time highs. Because the amount of people that want to buy the best appreciating asset in the history of the world with 100% uptime, the best logo, the best community, the best domain name, the best founder? Really? Could it be? Maybe the best founder. That's really high demand for that. I mean, I have phone calls with guys that have hundreds of millions of dollars and they want more exposure, not less. They want to buy more. So they're asking me how to get good entries, you know? So like, if you don't understand how high and how crazy the Hex price can go, you haven't seen anything yet. You really haven't. We're pre-viral. Have you seen it on CNBC how to buy Hex yet? No. Is it listed on big exchanges? No. Is it on the front page of CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko? No. Has anyone said a kind word about Hex ever? No. There's still people out there calling it a scam after it's overperformed, beat everything, with more security, more uptime, better price performance, better features. You're just like, what else can we do better here, guys? We won. You guys lost. All you guys that thought that it was going to be a rug pull, thought the price was going to go down, thought everything was going to suck. You were all wrong. You all lost. You all get wrecked. And we get to shove it in your face every single day because we won. And we didn't win by a little bit. We won by a lot. We super duper duper ultra won. And I post that chart all the time. Here's everything else. Here's Hex. So at some point, the rest of the world needs to update their worldview and understand they were wrong and what I built is better than anything that's existed previously. Hex.com is the best designed cryptocurrency in the world. Now, we've got PulseChain coming out. It's got some really good design features. Let's see if it can beat Hex. I mean, it's going to be an exciting challenge to find out.